this.
So I think the video is better.
Yes, thank you. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Yasemin Ipek. I am a faculty member in Global Affairs. I'm also a core member in Arda Bilgen Center. I'm an anthropologist by training. I'm very happy to be here in this very excited conference. So our panel it's the last panel of today, panel 3. It's called Sustainable Futures. We have 3 distinguished speakers, and I will take some time to present them to you. Our first speaker is Dr. Recep Senturk. Dr. Recep Senturk is the Dean of the College of Islamic Studies at HBKU. He was the former founding president of Ibn Khaldun University in Istanbul between 2017 and 21. Dr. Senturk holds a PhD from Columbia University's Department of Sociology and specializes in civilization studies, sociology, and Islamic studies with a focus on social networks, human rights, and modernization in the Muslim world. He has publications in English, Turkish, and Arabic, and his works have widely been translated into different languages from French and Japanese to Malayalam, Urdu, and Spanish. And he has a wide range of publications as well. For time purposes, I'm offering only a brief introduction. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Recep Senturk, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Today, I will be talking about civilizational sustainability of Islam, a rooted future for an open civilization, because I conceptualize Islam as an open civilization, and I will explain what I mean by open civilization and why I call Islam open civilization, and how Islam can offer a sustainability framework for civilization. So the major question, what sustains a civilization? Is it power, military capacity, technological sophistication, or scientific progress? These factors may explain temporary expansion and dominance, hegemony, yet they cannot account for long-term endurance. And this is what we learn from Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun is the great scholar who made civilization the subject for an independent discipline, as you all know, and he called it Ilmul Umran. Before Ibn Khaldun, the famous Muslim Turkish philosopher Farabi, he also made civilization an independent subject. He called it Al-Ilmul Medeni. According to Ibn Khaldun, civilizations are like living organisms. They go through 5 stages. So the first stage is the stage of foundation. This is the stage of success, strong solidarity, bond of lineage, high chivalry, and loyalty to the leader, and strong obedience to the tradition and morality. And the second stage is the stage of centralization of power. The leader collects all the power in himself. This is a stage of absolute power concentrated in the head of the state, and there is a professional army supporting the leader. And the third stage is the stage of growth and expansion, the stage of leisure and tranquility, big achievements in architecture, development of science, literature, and art. And this is the peak of the civilization. And at this stage, the state feels it is not threatened by any outside power, but the corruption inside starts ruining the state. Taxes increase at this point, and people are interested in more luxurious life. That's the strongest level of the state power concentrated in the leader. But this stage is followed by the stage of stagnation. And so in this stage, inexperienced leaders with weak characters, they become rulers, leaders, and the bureaucracy becomes incompetent, and the people desire for luxury and lack of courage, unwillingness to make war, and seeking for comfortable life, lavish lifestyle, desiring to make more money, and then spread of bad habits. These are the characteristics of this stage. And then the last stage, which is the stage of decline and dissolution of the civilization. Waste and squandering, and the economic problems, unfaithful soldiers, and then spread of immorality. And so if there is a problem happens, people accuse others rather than taking responsibility for their own mistakes, and they blame others, in particular the previous generations. And then the dissolution of the group solidarity, group unity, spread of individualism. So according to Ibn Khaldun, this is the life cycle of a civilization. It consists of 5 stages. So this provides us a framework for the civilizational sustainability. But there is a paradox, in this view. As I have explained, economic progress, if necessary measures are not taken, eventually erode the moral and military power of society. So you see, there is a paradox. On the one hand, like you want to achieve economic progress, but if you don't take the necessary measures, your keen interest in economic progress undermines moral and military power of a society. So is there a way to avoid this? Yes, there is a way to prevent this, and this is by following morality, by avoiding luxury or consumption, excessive spending, and also keeping the group unity and solidarity. So this way, the civilizational decline may be avoided. Barbara Stowasser, a German Orientalist, she wrote that underneath his pragmatism, Ibn Khaldun lets us perceive his deeper conviction, the conviction that adherence to the true religion can and should ensure the creation of God's kingdom on earth, an everlasting golden age. It and when this is achieved, he tells us, civilizations need not and will not rise or fall again. So Ibn Khaldun's description of 5 stages in the life cycle of a civilization is not predeterminist. So it could be avoided. So this made Ibn Khaldun think about what's the best way to sustain a civilization. As you all know, there is a concept in Islamic law, Maqasid Sharia. So it includes protection of life, family, mind, religion, and property. And all these things is summed up by Ibn Khaldun as preservation of civilization. So everything which is part of Maqasid Sharia can be summarized briefly as Hifzul Umran, protection of human civilization. So this way, sustainability of civilization becomes Maqsad Sharia. So the purpose of religion becomes preserving human civilization. And so from this perspective, civilization and sustainability requires moral sustainability, but moral sustainability requires epistemic sustainability, and epistemic sustainability requires sustainability of faith. Uh, so if these are in place, then we can assure that civilization can survive. So civilizational sustainability includes environmental sustainability, moral sustainability, and also epistemic sustainability. Because if epistemic sustainability is lost, then a civilization is doomed. And the same thing for the moral sustainability and environmental sustainability. So this framework, includes and goes beyond the UN sustainability framework that we have today. So how are we going to sustain morality? So in my view, there are three types of morality today. One is the modern approach to ethics and morality, which is hierarchical, and the other one, the postmodern, it's like horizontal, it's based on the horizontal relationship. I call this dyadic ethics. Or 2D uniplex ethics, but there is a triadic ethics which includes the creator as well. So bringing in the creator in our social relations and our relationship with nature is important, because our relationship with the creator sets the terms of our relationship with each other as well as with nature. Otherwise, it becomes a relationship of power and domination. So how can we ensure civilization sustainability? My answer is following applied Khaldunism, and applying Ibn Khaldun's wisdom in the contemporary context, and also intellectual independence. By this I mean emancipation from the hegemonic materialism, decolonization of the curriculum from Eurocentrism, and freedom from egoism and hedonism. And these two leads us to rooted revival or rooted future. This is an approach uh, that's anchored in the traditional Islamic principles and deploys them to address contemporary social, political, psychological, and existential challenges confronting Muslims and humanity in the spirit of reviving the civilization. And now I would like to briefly explain what I mean by open civilization, and can such a model help us rethink the future of civilization beyond limits of liberalism. So what made Islam an open civilization is first the multiplex worldview, the epistemology of Zanniyat, and the Ademiyya principle. So by multiplex worldview, I mean that Muslims adopt multiplex ontology, that existence has three levels: visible level of existence, invisible level of existence, and the divine level of existence. So this goes beyond the false dichotomy or the pseudo-binary between idealism and materialism. It offers a comprehensive ontological framework, and this leads to multiplex epistemology, which accepts that reason, sense perception, and divine revelation are sources of knowledge. I call this multiplex ontology also ontological pluralism, and multiplex epistemology epistemological pluralism. And my argument is that unless you have ontological pluralism and epistemological pluralism, you cannot have political or social pluralism. And this multiplex ontology and multiplex methodology, epistemology leads to multiplex methodology, which I call methodological pluralism. And then these foundations, these paradigmatic foundations, lay the ground for multiplex normative system, and also the concept of multiplex truth. Of course, there is so much detail about these things, but I cannot go into detail because of the limited time. And the epistemology of Zanniyat in Islam is very important to manage diversity. This is the domain of ijtihad, and people, if they are qualified, they are free to have their own opinion. And Islamic civilization, came up with an epistemology and methodology to create this environment of tolerance for ambiguity. And Thomas Bauer, drew attention to this. And the third important factor that made Islam an open civilization is the Ademiyya principle. Recently, I wrote a book on the concept of Ademiyya, which is the foundation for Islamic social, political, legal, and ethical system. According to this view, all human beings are protected under Islam, and it is the duty of Muslims to stand for the rights of all human beings all over the world. And this is summarized in this legal principle, Al-Isma bil-Adamiyya. All children of Adam are entitled to the right of inviolability of life, property, religion, family, mind, and honor merely by virtue of being human, regardless of their religion, regardless of their citizenship. And so Toynbee drew attention to this uh, uh, aspect of Islamic civilization in a speech he made in 1954. And the title of his lecture was Ottoman Empire in World History. In his speech, he said that nation state is no longer suitable for our age. We need a multinational state. But he said Western statesmanship cannot cope with this, and so they have to learn from the Ottoman non-territorial autonomy. So he said we can try to solve these problems by reproducing the virtues of the Ottoman system of non-territorial autonomy. So this is what was called the millet system. Ottomans inherited this system from Abbasids. They inherited from Umayyads, and the Umayyads inherited from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so John Locke, who is the well-known liberal thinker, he talked about natural law, and he said there are like a fundamental rights: life, health, liberty, and possession. And he wrote his book in 1704. Debussy in 1039 in his famous
Interrupting, I'm sorry. Just a reminder that you have 2 minutes right now. Thank you so much.
Okay, I am concluding briefly. So he listed three important rights, right to inviolability, freedom, and property. And the same way, Sarakhsi, wrote that all human beings must have the right to inviolability of life, freedom, and property. And today we have like three futures for Islam: either assimilationist future, that Muslims adopt liberal norms and lose metaphysical roots of Islam, and or the traditionalist conservative future, defensive reactionary postures, political Islamism without intellectual depth and ethical stagnation, or rooted revival, neither westernization nor isolation. So this is civilization awareness and education grounded in Islamic worldview and ethical governance. So I would like to conclude that Ibn Khaldun's momentous discipline of Umran and the tradition of fiqh may shed light on those desiring to reinterpret inter-civilization relations of today and recast it in a more pluralistic and peaceful mold for the future. So the future vision, derived from Ibn Khaldun, is reviving Islam as an open civilization based on the principle of Adamiyya, multiplex worldview, and the epistemology of Zanniyat. And this is what's needed for the sustainability of human civilization today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the sweet insight over like recently. I learned a lot. I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, by the way, I was asked by the organizers to be very strict about the timekeeping and everything, so forgive me. Our second panelist for this last panel is Rami el Samahy. Rami el Samahy is the founding principal for the Boston-based architecture and design firm OverUnder. He played a leading role in a wide range of projects, including exhibitions, cultural and institutional buildings, urban design, and large-scale planning projects. Recent work includes an exhibition at MIT Center for Advanced Urbanism, a villa overlooking the Giza pyramids, a library renovation in Haverhill, MA, a campus plan study for Salem's Peabody Essex Museum, and the list goes on and on. Today, his speech is titled Micro, Meso, Macro, Design as a Means of Predicting the Future. Please help me welcoming Samahy.
Hello. Like everyone in the room, I have multiple identities. Probably the most relevant ones for today are I'm Egyptian, I'm a designer, and I'm a recovering academic. None of which lend themselves to brevity, but I'll do my best to keep in time. So I am an architect. OverUnder has worked in a number of places. We are architecture and design. We do what we like to say, everything from the book to the city. We've designed exhibitions, graphic design work, etc., both in the US and South America and in the Arab world at multiple scales. I've also had the privilege of teaching at Carnegie Mellon, MIT, and Wentworth Institute of Technology, teaching largely about visual information design, sort of how to make data legible, as well as architecture and urban design studios. My own research has really focused on areas of modernity as sort of a paradigm of the 20th century development, you could say, but also sort of looking forward what sort of the future of architecture and the future of design might be. With that in mind, thinking about the future, and there are many versions of this attributed to many different people, but I like this one by Mr. Fuller. The best way to predict the future is to design it. And in fact, all design, like all artwork, like all writing, is a form of speculation. And speculation sort of, in and of itself, an imagination of what might come to pass. And, I think there are sort of worldwide, there are all sorts of examples of this. The British sign system, which sort of understood that we were going to be moving at faster speeds and therefore needed to tone down what was on those signs to be legible at say, 50 miles an hour. Dieter Rams' simplification of the calculator, which was sort of radically simple, sort of took a lot of buttons off of a calculator to make it easier to use, and it becomes the basis of Apple's design or the inspiration for Apple's design when they go to look at their own calculator on their phone. Minority Report, which came out in 2022, I think, and you see him touching screens and moving things around, and at the time we were all probably, what is he doing? Now we're all doing it. More recently, Stefano Boeri's Vertical Forest in Milan is sort of pointing the way, perhaps, to how kind of nature and architecture might coexist in the future. And then at the sort of urban scale is looking at the block grid of Barcelona, which is sort of very distinctive, beautiful thing, and they've sort of recently made these proposals to effectively make a super block out of each 9 blocks and limit traffic to the edges, which pedestrianizes the city in a radical way. And not only pedestrianizes it, but also brings back vegetation. I really like this quote as well from William Gibson, and I think it's sort of apropos to the topic at hand. Sort of all of those are wonderful micro, meso, and macro ideas. They're all Western, you know, sort of in this part of the world. To what degree are we thinking about engaging with the future of design in the Muslim world? Starting, I think, with graphic design, there's sort of a really interesting effort to create digital typographies that are sort of legible simultaneously in Latin scripts, but also in Arabic script. So when they are designed, they're designed in pairs, right? So you can kind of easily toggle between the two, as you see at this exhibition in Abu Dhabi, but also scale it up as you do on a phone or a computer screen. This very powerful exhibition by Arda Bilgen, which is a sort of testament to the 70,000 books that were destroyed during the Iraq War. It is a blank shelf of white bookshelves that's super, super stark. And it's really a call for donation. And it was a traveling exhibition. And what happens over time is, as people make donations, more color sort of becomes a part of the bookshelf until sort of culture is restored. A very interesting thing by a young Qatari entrepreneur, Smart Sajada, which is sort of marketed or branded as a way to educate young and new Muslims into prayer. So you can imagine the sort of stream that sort of helps you out as you're moving through. At the architectural scale, I think Hassan Fathy cannot be ignored, and I don't mean the sort of way in which it's become a style for the bourgeoisie in many parts of my country, but it's more importantly, I would say, it really became a clarion call for sort of net zero architecture in the middle of 1946, so in the middle of modernity, that really relied on this newfangled invention called the air conditioner. In that vein, Marina Tabassum's, excuse my mispronunciation, the Kuribaris, these are in the Bangladeshi river plain, very modest structures, living structures that are easily built. You can see a simple bamboo and steel structured frame. It can be assembled by a small group of people. Very modest sleeping quarters above, but also use below. And if and when you need to move, it's easily disassemblable and reassemblable elsewhere. And sort of when you start to aggregate it, it becomes an interesting kind of communal enabler. At a very different scale, obviously, is the National Museum of Qatar by Jean Nouvel. Not as far as I know, a Muslim, but I think a Westerner sort of gets at least Arab architecture in interesting ways. This is literally inspired by the Desert Rose, which is something that happens sort of naturally when wind and sand collaborate. But more importantly, for purposes of this structure, it becomes sort of, it creates these deep sort of self-shading moments where the building's heat load is reduced as a result of sort of self-shading and these sort of pockets of inhabitable space during times of the year where it can be quite grim. Also interesting and sort of worth contemplating is, what does a museum mean in a culture like Qatar, which has a deep history, but a paucity of sort of found artifacts, right? So the things that sort of go into your typical Western museum are not available. So there's sort of a reliance on visual sort of exhibitions, and even sort of I believe kind of sort of filming in real time other parts of the country, as well as the nature. I think there are cameras underground that sort of show you sea life as well. Just across the Gulf in Hormuz Island is a very interesting project called the Majara Complex by Zal Architects, which is offering the opportunity, multiple things sort of at the same time. One is to bring tourists to the island. I'm guessing that's on hold at the moment. But also a way of sort of empowering local construction techniques and economy. It uses a very interesting system to create these domes. It's developed by an Iranian-born, California-based architect named Nader Khalili, sorry, who it's called Super Adobe, and it's essentially sand packed tightly into bags and then sort of assembled to create these vaults and domes. The results are sort of beautiful, quite spectacular on the inside, but also create these sort of pleasantly shaded and modest public spaces. Crossing back across the Gulf, sort of, and moving up in scale is Masdar City, an enormously ambitious project. When it was sort of released or announced to the world in 2010, this is from the New York Times. At that time, sort of, it was sort of the first net zero energy city in the world. It included all sorts of things like automated cars. So the whole system was sort of pressing your destination. It would take you at the sort of subterranean level to your destination. A series of both passive and active cooling techniques, as well as sort of other high-tech investments. At some stage, the project became sort of scaled down, and sort of a new set of designers took over and literally brought it to the ground. The whole thing was sort of elevated 15 meters in the air, and it's now doesn't have the sort of robotic cars and some of the other things, but there are elements that continue, and it continues to be a source of sort of sparking of the imagination. This image is from a competition by the Land Art Generator Initiative for a new kind of space in the city that would sort of capture rainwater or capture any sort of moisture in the air, provide a shaded, lush space sort of within this structure. Perhaps the most ambitious project in the region is NEOM's The Line, 175 kilometer, 500 meter tall line from the Red Sea out into the desert. This really looks like some Star Wars set. Because I mean, it's sort of uncanny how sci-fi this image is, and I don't think that's accidental. I think they really leaning hard into that. But it's, it at least in its articulation as an idea, is sort of a radically interesting notion. It has no sort of car-free. You are, in theory, sort of anywhere 15 minutes from where you live and work. A lot of the things we sort of would like to have in our lives. This is that sort of image I was describing. It's really since been scaled down significantly. They canceled a lot of contracts recently, and have announced just last month or in February maybe that they would build the first kilometer and a half. 1% of that idea. And, you know, it's easy to laugh, and in some ways I think merits laughter, but I also think the idea itself is worthy, and I wouldn't, ideas matter, right? And the way we think about the future and what we offer as future possibilities, even if they're unrealized or unachievable, are still can be inspirational. And it's not just in sort of our daydream world, but actually as ways to move other projects forward. At a very different scale, in Tehran, is a sort of public realm project that is really quite interesting. It's a plaza above an underground metro station that uses you know, traditional kind of vault barrel vault technology, you know, brick technology to sort of create these semi-outdoor spaces that are oriented in a way to capture cool breezes, provide shade, and through sort of, you know, there's no active cooling. It's also passive cooling spaces, and quite, from the looks of it, quite beautiful as well. In Bangladesh, another project is by co-creation architects, sort of as a way, GATS, or again, I apologize for my mispronunciation, were these sort of routes down to the river that are sort of essential for rural living. They provide opportunity for bathing, cleaning, fishing, and sort of movement, transportation. And what this project is doing is trying to sort of restore those over time. Through erosion and development, access to the water has become more limited, and these projects that are sort of all down the sort of river valley are attempts to sort of create that access, and in doing so, provide sort of a real meaningful public room. So this is a much smaller scale one. It's just sort of for a single community as a way to get down. There's changing room in that cylinder. And then the sort of longer one and the two tiers use both the sort of reality that floods are inevitable. So there may be moments where you know, you can only be on the top, but also it sort of preserves, I think, it preserves all the existing trees. In fact, the whole structure kind of is built around these trees and sort of allows that. And as you can see from this photograph, very quickly creates a space for social life to so with that, my conclusion is, I think in terms of sustainability, whether we're talking about cultural sustainability, environmental sustainability, or economic sustainability, I think there are sort of multiple answers for us and multiple possibilities, all of which I would advocate should be thrown into the mix. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another very rich insightful talk. Our last speaker in the panel is Dr. Arda Bilgen from LSE Middle East Center. Let me briefly introduce Dr. Arda Bilgen. Arda Bilgen is a research officer at the LSE Middle East Center, where he co-leads the Kuwaiti program project titled Water Security in Kuwait, Exploring a Water Citizenship Approach to Sustainable Water Futures. Prior to that, he worked on the Peace Rep project, Surface Water Changes in the Euphrates Basin since 1984, and their governance implications for Iraq. Dr. Bilgen's work mainly focuses on global water governance, transboundary water politics, national water infrastructure, and local experiences of water insecurity, and his research has been widely published in several leading journals. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Arda.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and staying this late. I really appreciate your patience and dedication. Today, I'll be talking about the future of water in the Middle East, a predominantly Muslim region. And my main argument will be that water scarcity in the region is not only physical and economic, but also deeply political. As a result, addressing this problem requires more than technological solutions. It requires a fundamental shift in how we understand water and how we relate to water at multiple scales, from personal to global. And it calls for a stronger sense of water citizenship, something that sees water that not just a natural resource, but also as a domain of rights, responsibilities, and shared identity. So let me give you a few key figures to outline the water profile of the region. So Middle East is the most water scarce region in the world. 14 out of 17 most water stressed countries globally are located in this region, and more than 60% of its population lives under high or very high water stress. By 2030, water availability per capita is expected to fall below the absolute scarcity threshold of 500 cubic meters per person per year. This situation is being intensified by rapid population growth, because the region's population has increased from 100 million in 1960 to more than 500 million today, and it's projected to increase even higher to 770 million by 2050. And of course, meeting this demand will require about 25 billion cubic meters of water each year. But this is a major challenge because the region already faces multiple pressures at the same time. First, there's overuse. Many countries are withdrawing more water than is replenished. Groundwater aquifers are being depleted and the rivers are heavily diverted. And in some cases, this has led to what we today call water bankruptcy, as we recently saw in Iran. And second, there's the issue of how water is used. Around 80% of withdrawals go to agriculture, but the sector is not generating enough economic returns per unit of water. And third, the quality of water is declining. Pollution, untreated wastewater, and brine discharge from desalination plants are degrading ecosystems. And another major challenge is, of course, non-revenue water, which is water that's not reaching the end user, and this is caused by the decaying infrastructure, leakages, illegal connections, and poor metering. And finally, weak governance, or let's say poor governance, plays a key role, because water is often heavily subsidized or widely underpriced. Monitoring is weak, enforcement is inconsistent. So as a result, there are only few incentives for people or for governments to conserve water or improve efficiency. So overall, the region faces a combination of extreme scarcity, inefficient use, and weak institutional control. Despite facing similar challenges, each country or the countries have followed different development paths. So some rely heavily on groundwater extraction. This does improve water scarcity in the short term, but of course it comes at the cost of long-term depletion. And some other countries rely on their transboundary rivers, river systems such as the Nile, the Euphrates, and Tigris. And these shared rivers, when you use this resource, of course, this usage directly ties water to regional diplomacy or political relations. In the Gulf, we see a different picture. The approach has been different because here the states have chosen to invest heavily in desalination. So water is produced through energy-intensive and expensive technological systems. In fact, the majority of the world's desalination plants are located in this region, as you can see on the map. Most of them are concentrated in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain. And elsewhere, like countries like Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, have made progress in wastewater treatment and use and reuse. The overall water policy in the region has historically focused on increasing supply, extending supply through various means like dams, interbasin transfers, or desalination plants, rather than addressing demand or improving efficiency. Even though today some states are focusing on demand-side management, water governance still tends to treat water as a technical issue rather than a political or economic system. So against this background, there are three major challenges that I think will shape the future of water in the Middle East. The first one is, of course, climate change. It's already intensifying water stress. The rainfall patterns are changing. They're becoming periodic. Temperatures are rising. Evaporation rates are increasing. Droughts are becoming more frequent and more intense. Sea levels are rising, especially in coastal zones such as the Nile Delta. Desertification is also another problem. So taken together, these trends reduce both the quantity and quality of water supply, and they have major economic, social, and political consequences. For instance, the region is expected to lose up to 14% of its GDP due to climate-related water scarcity by 2050. And these pressures also contribute to social unrest, migration, and conflict. And their impacts often extend beyond national boundaries. Second challenge is the increasing weaponization of water. Of course, this is not a new phenomenon. Water has long been part of geopolitical rivalries or security dynamics, especially transboundary water contexts where there are power imbalances between upstream and downstream countries. But what we are seeing today is an intensification of this trend. So in recent conflicts, both state and non-state actors have targeted water infrastructure, seized control of resources, and used water access as a tool of coercion. Even in some extreme cases, water deprivation has been directly integrated into military strategies despite being against international law. As the ongoing war also shows, water infrastructure is likely to become even more critical dimensional warfare in the future. For example, desalination plants can become strategic targets again, and their disruptions can severely affect livelihoods, food security, and agricultural production. So while infrastructure can enhance resilience, it can also create new vulnerabilities. The third challenge is the expansion of AI, particularly in the Gulf. The region's data center capacity is expected to grow rapidly in the coming years, with major investments from both global giants like global technological firms and also local actors. But these systems are highly water intensive, mainly due to cooling requirements, as we heard from Sophia this morning. So they're also energy intensive, which means increased reliance on desalination and wastewater treatment. Both of them, they do have significant ecological costs. In other words, the digital expansion of this sector depends on water availability in one of the most water-stressed regions in the world. So in response, indeed, Gulf states are beginning to treat water, energy, and AI as some sort of an integrated system. And we are seeing new regulations, new investments in renewable power desalination, and the development of more advanced cooling technologies that consume less energy, and they're called regenerative data centers, Saudi Arabia, for instance. And at the urban scale, as Rami mentioned, eco-city projects are acting as testbeds for these integrated water and energy systems. So cities like Neom, Green Mubarak, Al Kabir, Kuwait, or Masdar are collaborating to develop shared standards for water and energy efficiency. And this kind of cross-border collaborations or learning is important because it helps scale successful solutions, successful examples across the region and beyond. But still, these transitions must be carefully governed because without clear efficiency standards and requirements for using non-potable water, AI-driven technologies could also place additional strain on already fragile water systems. So while many of these challenges are difficult to address because some of them are structural and some of them are just not governable, there's still significant room for improvement or for action to improve water security in the region. One key mechanism is virtual water trade. So this refers to the water embedded in food and agriculture products. In other words, countries import water through trade instead of using domestic water for these products. So the Middle East region is one of the world's most, like one of the largest importers of virtual water, particularly from countries like the US, Brazil, Argentina, and Australia. So this means that a significant share of the region's water security depends not on their own local water resources, but on global trade systems. Of course, this in practice, this allows water-scarce countries to shift their very valuable resources away from like low-value agriculture production and use this resource instead on for their urban and industrial development. But at the same time, this system brings some risks because dependence on imports creates exposures to global shocks like food price volatility, supply chain disruptions, or geopolitical tensions. It also raises political concerns since in many cases food and water are considered strategic resources and they are often seen as issues of national security. So while expanding virtual water trade can be beneficial in this region, must be very carefully governed to balance efficiency with resilience, otherwise new vulnerabilities might as well emerge. Speaking of AI again, so while AI creates new pressures on water systems, it also offers innovative tools to manage water more efficiently. So smart water systems powered by advanced technologies, analytics, and machine learning, they are without a doubt improving utility operations, reducing waste, or making service delivery more reliable. Drawing on the Internet of Things, we can speak about the Internet of Water, which refers to like integrated smart sensors, cloud computing, and real-time data, which allows for better monitoring systems or more efficient allocation and improved environmental protection. And another key innovation in this regard is the use of digital twins. So they are basically virtual models of water networks that allow operators to simulate their performance, detect some leakages early, or anticipate system failures. Big water companies like Thames Water in the UK, for instance, they are using this a lot, and as far as I know, importing these systems to the region as well. So this shifts water management from a reactive approach to a predictive one, which is the innovative part of this application, I think. So technology also improves service delivery, and mobile-based systems do allow particularly rural populations to be integrated in the system, and they do get faster responses to infrastructure problems. So, I mean, these technologies are good, but they do also raise important questions about their control, their transparency, and also their access to data, because, AI is good and it should be integrated into water management, but at the same time, it should not reduce the whole process into something purely technical and overlook its human and social dimensions. In addition to digital technologies, water-saving solutions are also essential for resilience. So new applications like retention ponds, which capture and store storm water, they are beneficial. They prevent floods, and also they allow water to be reused. Egypt has already begun experimenting with these systems. In agriculture, there are new applications like subsurface regulated deficit irrigation. It's becoming more popular, and countries like Saudi Arabia are actively using this approach. Hydroponic systems are another promising solution. They can use reduce water use by up to 90%, while allowing for food production in urban and arid environments. And some projects in Ethiopia, for instance, have shown very positive results and how these systems can improve food security. Urban design again plays the role, as Rami said. Green building initiatives like the ones in Dubai promote water saving fixtures, efficient cooling systems, and sustainable construction practices. Rainwater harvesting is another important approach, and rainwater recycling, for instance, it allows households to reuse water from showers, sinks, laundry, and this can reduce water consumption by up to 50 to 80%. So while these solutions are promising, their implementation is often constrained by financial and institutional limitations. So not all countries have the same means or same capacity to adopt them, which raises questions about equity and access related to these systems. And finally, and the most important shift, I think, is conceptual. I think we need to rethink water as a hydrosocial system. So this approach challenges the idea that water is simply a physical or technical resource, and instead it sees water as something co-produced through material flows, social relations, and political processes. So in this perspective, infrastructure, institutions, cultural practices, they do come together and shape how water flows. And in return, water shapes patterns of power, development, and everyday life. It also shifts some key questions. So instead of asking very technical questions like how much water is available for people, it asks who controls water, who benefits from water, or who is included or excluded in the water agreements. So this, from this point of view, water scarcity is not just a natural condition. It is also a socially and politically produced or manufactured situation. And if that's the case, then solutions also must go beyond efficiency, and they must also address issues of governance, justice, and legitimacy. So in conclusion, from what I see, the Middle East faces one of the most complex water futures in the world, shaped by climate change, technological transformation, and political constraints. Despite also being a region of significant innovation in this sector, technology alone is not enough, because tech solutions are often proposed for problems that are fundamentally political. And the real constraints are not really engineering gaps or deficits, but rather issues of governance and power, and in some cases, trust. This is why water must be understood not as a neutral sector, but as a hydrosocial system, one that is shaped by and in turn shapes, of course, social and political relations. And from this perspective, what's needed is a form of water citizenship, an understanding that emphasizes rights, responsibilities, and active engagement of individuals and communities in shaping sustainable practices. And this approach can draw on lived experience, low scarcity, can be informed by Islamic values of stewardship, and respond to the paradox of pursuing sustainability in context of both scarcity and abundance. And ultimately, the future of water in the region will depend on how we will connect technology with politics, efficiency with justice, and systems thinking with political reality. So the question is not only how we manage water in an arid and scarce region, but also how we understand it and how we choose to live with it. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We indeed had a very interesting panel, and I also learned a lot from the last presentation as well. As a discussant of the panel, I will just pose 2 straightforward questions for all panelists. I believe that Recep Senturk is also here. And then after their responses,